Hey everyone, it's Dot, and I've gotten a few little comments from folks inquiring about side dishes. Specifically, they wanted me to do a couple of videos on different sides and just sort of come up with some ideas. And my philosophy on side dishes has really changed since I went low carb about 6 years ago. And I used to make sure I had 2 side dishes with each protein. And nowadays, I just do 1 side dish and that's it. That's pretty much all I need. Side dishes don't have to be really extravagant. They can be really simple. And there's just little ways you jazz them up. And for all intents and purposes, side dishes are going to be your veggies. That's where you're going to get your carbs at. So it's important to always add a fat to that side dish. I'm going to make just a basic dish, which is sauteed mushrooms. Before we get started, I'm going to make my butter, which is going to go into this dish. And the idea here is I'm going to make a compound butter. So I'm in fact jazzing up my butter for this particular dish. All I have is about 4 tablespoons of softened butter. I'm adding in some shallots, really finely chopped, and fresh thyme I'm adding in. And all I'm going to do is mix everything together. And I might need a stronger spoon than this guy. I'm using 3 different types of mushrooms for this particular dish. Now, you don't have to use 3. It really is up to you. I'm doing it for flavor because, like I said, this is my side dish for dinner tonight. We're going to be using this with a steak. I've already went ahead and chopped up my button mushrooms right here. And I also have portobello mushrooms, baby bellas. They're pretty big for babies, but that's all right. And I'm using shiitake mushrooms as well. And the difference here really is about the flavor. A shiitake mushroom, if you haven't had them, have a little bit of a smoky, buttery flavor to them, if you will. The younger they are, the more fresh they are, the more buttery they are. But as they age, they get a little smoky in flavor. And then obviously portobellos, they have a nice beefy flavor to it, beefy texture, which is why a lot of people substitute them for burgers, in fact. And then, of course, the regular button mushrooms they're just pretty much a nice delicate flavor to them. For the shiitakes, preparing them, you want to remove the stem, and that's simply because the stem tends to be way too woody for you to cook with. However, set them aside and save them because you can use them for stock if you want to make a nice vegetable stock. And then all I'm going to do is just slice them the way I normally would slice mushrooms. I'm just going to go ahead and keep nice, large, chunky pieces and set them aside. Now for your portobellos, when you cut them, you can use the stems, and I like to squeeze them and see how hard and woody they are. And typically what I do is I cut off the ends because that's where it's going to be a little bit more fibrous because of where it was picked at. And then you're good to just go ahead and slice as you go and use those stems. Right after I finish chopping my mushrooms, I mix them all together, just toss them all together, because when I cook them in the pan, I want to make sure I have all the different mushrooms in the pan, not just one type at a time. I want that flavor mixed together that they all have. I'm already heating up 1 tablespoon of olive oil. I'm going to add a little bit of the shallot butter. And the key here is why I'm doing it this way is I have this over a medium-high heat, and butter starts smoking. And if you cook it with another fat, basically starts having a higher smoke point. Oh, and that smells so good with the thyme. I'm going to add in my first batch. The butter is still melting, but that's fine. And you're going to be doing this in batches. You want a full pan, but you don't want to just toss in a bunch of them at one time. What I'm going to do is cook this for about 4 minutes to get it nice browned and also let the water release. And to get the water to release, I'm going to start adding a little bit of salt and a little pinch of pepper in here. Now, if you look at the pan, you can see the liquid starting to come off of the mushrooms, and what you want to do is you want to cook all that liquid out. You also want to stir pretty often, simply because you don't want your shallots to burn up. They're going to definitely brown as you're heating this up. Mushrooms are done. They smell delicious. I went ahead and added a tablespoon of my shallot butter on top, and I just rolled it around. You can see it melted. I'm going to toss them a little bit in it. I'm going to try a shiitake and a portobello together. Let's see how that goes. Ooh. This was really good, and the flavors were just amazing with that butter. The shiitake mushroom had a nice buttery flavor that really deepened by adding the shallot butter to it. The portobello mushroom tasted amazing as well. It had a lovely beefy flavor to it, and I got one that had a little bit of caramelization on it, so it made it taste even better. I will say this, because I was using shallot butter, meaning I had shallots and thyme in it, fresh ingredients, I didn't cook the mushrooms as long as I normally would. I added a little bit of color to the mushrooms, but I didn't really fully caramelize them, which I would recommend. However, I would recommend you do that if you're using just olive oil with just straightforward butter, just because you don't want the thyme and shallots to burn, because you do have to cook them for a bit longer, but it really does add amazing flavor when you do that. Like I said, we're gonna be using this on top of our steaks today. You can also make this ahead of time and use it for omelets in the morning if you wanted to. It's a great prep dish, but it also works as a side dish. You can use it in casseroles, omelets, like I said, or just straightforward as a side dish with a protein. Definitely something you wanna try, and I hope you like the video. Subscribe, share with your friends, and until next time, I'll see ya.